They say when they placed the rope around her neck, she did not beg. She did not cry, she did not look away. Instead, she said, "My bones will rise again." And the men who came to conquer her land laughed, but history would remember her words and forget their laughter. This is the story of a woman the British tried to hang, and the spirit they could not kill. Long before soldiers marched into her homeland, she was a girl. Her name was Charwe Nyakasikana. She was born among the Shona people, in the land that would later be called Zimbabwe, a land of granite hills, of cattle and millet fields, of ancestors who were never considered dead, only unseen. But Charwe was different. From a young age, people whispered about her. They said she listened to voices others could not hear, that when she spoke, elders fell silent, that the air around her felt charged. She became a spirit medium, the voice of Nehanda. Nehanda was not just a name. Nehanda was a Mondoro, a powerful ancestral spirit who guided and protected the people. And when Charwe spoke, it was no longer just a woman speaking. It was history, it was memory, it was the land itself. Then the strangers came. In 1890, columns of armed settlers moved into the territory under the flag of the British South Africa Company, led by Cecil Rhodes. They claimed the land through deception and paper treaties. They planted the flag. They named the country Rhodesia, after Rhodes himself. To them, it was opportunity. To the Shona and Ndebele people, it was theft. Cattle were seized, land was taken, taxes were imposed on people who had never used British coins. If you could not pay the tax, you worked. If you refused to work, you were beaten. If you resisted, you were shot. The balance of the world had shifted, and the ancestors were not silent. The drought came first. Then rinderpest wiped out cattle. Fields failed. Children grew thin. The people began to ask, had the spirits abandoned them? Charwe, now fully recognized as Mbuya Nehanda, gave an answer. The ancestors were angry. The land had been defiled. The strangers had to go. In 1896, war erupted. It would later be called the First Chimurenga, the first uprising against colonial rule. Across the land, warriors rose. Among the Ndebele, leaders like Lobengula had already resisted British encroachment years earlier. Now, resistance reignited, but Nehanda was not a general with a rifle. She was something more dangerous. She was belief. She traveled among villages, urging unity, promising spiritual protection, declaring that the bullets of the settlers would turn to water. And for a time, the settlers were afraid. Isolated farms were attacked. Communication lines were cut. The illusion of easy conquest shattered. The empire had not expected resistance led by a woman, a spirit medium, an elder. The British retaliated brutally. Villages were burned. Suspected rebels were executed. Anyone accused of supporting the uprising was hunted. Eventually, Nehanda was captured. Some say she was betrayed. Others say she surrendered, knowing her role had already been fulfilled. She was accused of ordering the killing of a colonial official. The trial was swift, predictable. The outcome had already been decided. Guilty, death by hanging. On March 27, 1898, they led her to the gallows in Salisbury, now Harare. Crowds gathered, some out of loyalty, some out of fear, some out of curiosity. The British expected a spectacle of defeat. Instead, they witnessed composure. She did not collapse. She did not plead. Witnesses said she remained calm, even defiant. And then she spoke the words that would outlive her executioners. "My bones will rise again." The trapdoor opened. Her body fell. The British believed the rebellion had ended. For decades, colonial rule tightened its grip. Rhodesia expanded. White minority rule hardened. But her words lingered. "My bones will rise again." In the 1960s and 70s, a second liberation struggle began. Guerrilla fighters took to the bush. Young men and women carried rifles and songs of resistance. They invoked Nehanda's name. They believed her spirit walked with them. In 1980, after years of war, Zimbabwe gained independence. And suddenly her final words did not sound like myth. They sounded like prophecy. Mbuya Nehanda was executed in 1898, but she became immortal in memory. She was not just a rebel, not just a spirit medium. She was a symbol of resistance when defeat seems certain, of identity when erasure feels inevitable, of belief powerful enough to challenge empire. Empires measure power in guns and gold, but Nehanda understood something deeper. If a people remember who they are, if they believe their land is sacred, if they refuse to surrender their story, then even death cannot silence them. They tried to hang her. Instead, they planted her in history, and history let her rise.